For generations, our families have lived here. We built lives, raised children, cared for the land. Now the future is at risk. Turbines, almost twice the height of the spire in Dublin, are being forced into the heart of our community.
I feel it's important for my and my family's voice to be heard, because if this can happen here, it can happen anywhere. My name is David Comerford. I live at Seskinrea, O'Loughlin in County Carlow. I'm the fourth generation of my family living on this road, in this area and on this land. In our particular case here, we will have the wind turbines to the rear of us, to the side of us and to the front of us. The road that we live on will intersect a 19 turbine wind farm. A wind farm as such, but in turn, I suppose it's a wind prison. You want to be able to leave, but you can't leave. There's no one by your house. The wind companies came to this area because it's obviously a wind-rich environment. They came 10 years ago, and Carlow County Council and Bord Pleanála agreed that this wasn't a suitable location for turbines which are in effect smaller than the ones that are proposed now. The ones that are proposed now are 185 metres tall, with a blade span covering 5 acres. So that's going to produce a lot of noise. What baffles me is that it was allowed to get this far again when it's been defeated already, yet to come back with bigger units and take this community to a point where we have to engage a legal team and raise funds to pay for that legal team. The proposed development is going to disperse this community. Personally, I can't see a future for this tight-knit community here anymore. The issue is that the turbines are too large, too near, and too loud. It may be a case where people will have to just up and leave. People have worked hard for their house. They got up early every morning, went out to work, pay their mortgage, and in turn, me and my neighbours are going to be left basically with nothing. We won't be able to stay here, and we won't be able to set up either, because nobody will want to live in the area where there are huge turbines, the likes of which haven't been seen inland in residential areas ever.
What has been happening in recent times is scaring communities and is causing huge division in many areas where very major proposals are being prepared. The size, the scale and the extent of the new proposed wind farms are genuinely causing major anxiety in communities across the country. And whereas wind turbines were originally of a scale maybe 50 to 60 to 70 metres high, what is now being proposed is wind turbines of up to 180 metres high. Worryingly, many of these farms are now close to large clusters of housing. And I don't think people have a proper appreciation out there of what actually is being proposed. And because these wind farms are being located close to residential areas, the health implications are causing concern to residents in terms of noise, in terms of shadow flicker, in terms of destruction of residential amenity. And there's a fundamental absence of transparency governing all of this development. There's an absence of consultation with local residents and communities. Above all, there is an absence of a legislative framework to deal with this step change in technology and scale of development. What I simply ask you, Taoiseach, is this, is to create a legislative framework to govern the development of such large industrial wind farms. Simple as that.
And we are going to revise the 2006 wind guidelines for once and for all. I've outlined the process that we're undertaking to do that. I'm pleased that the process finally is advancing well. And in fact, in the Climate Action Plan 2024 that literally only a couple of hours ago we approved at Cabinet, there is a specific action There's an annex of actions for the people in the gallery that says what we're going to do this year. And there's a specific action that says we're going to finalise the publication of the revised wind guidelines in the last quarter of this year. So this year we'll see new wind guidelines.
We don't want to be the generation that let our area be destroyed by these. My name is George Quirk. I was born here on the farm 70 years ago. My family goes back 6 or 7 generations farming here. The wind farm is going to affect everyone living in the area. Dotted around houses, 600 feet high, the communities long term will die out. We're dealing with something new here. When the developer first came around and said what they were going to do, I asked him where in Ireland could I go see similar turbines. And he says there aren't any. He couldn't tell me where to go. They're just experimenting with these. Originally they were designed for offshore. Now they're putting them near houses with the setback distances not increased. The government has refused to do anything. In 2006, the setback was 500 metres when turbines were only roughly 50 metres. Now they're approaching 200 metres high and the setback distances haven't been changed. We feel let down by the government for allowing that to happen.
Feels like as a community we don't have much say in the matter. The wind farm developers don't seem to care any of our concerns. I'm Raymond Quirk, I'm George's son. I suppose I would have helped George all my life growing up. We do a lot of work together, I suppose.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. My father has worked here for over 50 years dairying. I suppose he's at a stage in his life now where he's cutting back a little bit, and it'd be nice to see him walk around the farm and be able to enjoy it and look back on all the hard work he's done, I suppose. I feel disappointed and let down that it has come to this, after my father working here his whole life and working so hard that we have to deal with this and put up with it.
A lot of people don't realise it, and they'll only realise it when it's too late, and then nothing can be done. I've lived here all my life. It's a peaceful part of the country. We'd like to pass it on to the next generation like that, and I don't want to be the generation that let it down.
If these developments go ahead, a total of 250 houses will be directly impacted. My name is Fiona Donnelly. Myself and my husband moved into the area in 2009. I've always had a connection with O'Loughlin as my mum is originally from O'Loughlin. I also have loads of aunts, uncles and cousins still living in the area. Some of them will be directly impacted if these proposed developments are allowed to go ahead. There are several reasons why we're against these wind farm developments. It's the sheer size of the development. Each of these turbines is 185 metres in height. The spire in Dublin is 122 metres. 560 loads of concrete will be used in the base for 7 turbines. The base will be filled with reinforced steel. We have 70 piles going a further 18 metres into the ground, and each of these piles are 300 by 300. We are very nervous about our water courses. We'd be very naive to think that these courses won't be diverted or polluted. We also have information that tells us that a total of over 200,000 tonne of stone will be deposited on the hill. 40,000 trucks that will be passing through O'Loughlin village and will be passing our school. This is along with knocking hundreds of acres of forestry. There'll be kilometres of new roads created through what is at the minute greenfield sites. Shadow flicker is one of our huge concerns as well. Shadow flicker occurs when the blades of the turbine are directly between the sun and a person's house. It's like a constant light being switched on and switched off. All of our community members are very nervous of the threat of landslide. The site area where these 2 developments are proposing to go is an upland raised plateau. It's made up mainly of bogland and of forestry. We already have evidence of 2 bog slides, one in Derrybrine and one in Mean Bog. In Mean Bog, their site is very similar to our site here. And we believe that our area will be in huge threat of landslide if these developments are allowed to go ahead. O'Loughlin is very much in favour of a transition to more renewable energy sources in the future. We set up an SEC in 2018 and we were the first community in County Carlow to create our energy master plan. Our hall got a complete energy retrofit, which included a solar system and a heat pump. Our local shop has solar panels, our local church has solar panels. We're looking at setting up a community virtual power plant. We'll be one of the first communities in the country that have started a project of that scale. So I think that as a community, we're actually very proactive.
A fucking disaster, that's what it is. The value of your house is gone, your life is disrupted, everything has changed. Like, as it stands, I'm badly affected by 6 wind turbines directly in front of my house, and I'm down as being a participating property, which I wasn't. Not one word of consultation, nobody came and asked me, was I, under no circumstances I'm a participating property. Like, that's bullshit. How would I agree to what's going on around my house? If the planning inspector was doing his job half right at all and see how badly I'm affected with the 6 turbines, he wouldn't have agreed to the planning. They have the whole community split. It was a lovely community with everyone pulling together, but now it's all divided because of these wind farms. They have no commitment to the area. They have just come into a place and just stick these up. They don't care what cause they're going to affect on families or anything. The disturbance it's going to take to get them in, the underground water supplies, everything. Like, who will ever come to take them down when they're done? They're going to be on the landscape forever. There's 8 already up and running, and there's 5 more we're planning, granted. They're nice, handy ones. They're not major things like what's going up beside the house here. So we probably nearly have enough done for a small little community. Now they're going to disrupt the roads, the forestries, the water, my peace and quiet. So that's the whole of it, isn't it? Trying to fight these big crowds. They have everything, we have nothing, but sure, we'll stay soldiering on until we put a stop to them.
It takes its toll on you when you're constantly fighting against companies that don't care. They just want to get them in, get them up, and then they'll sell them on and until they've exhausted their life expectancy and we're left with eyesores. It's always in the background. You're knocking on doors, making phone calls. What fundraising are we doing? When's court? It's relentless. And you're doing it for everybody because everybody will be affected. Even people who don't think they're going to be affected will be affected. We've heard from other communities that have smaller wind turbines. They've had to move house. They've had to leave their houses. They cannot cope with the noise, the flicker, with the infrasound, something that the wind turbine companies will not acknowledge that it exists.
I worked all my life to build this house, and you just don't know it'll be worth nothing in a year's time when these windmills come up. Like it is, it's fracturing communities all over the country. It's not known, put a windmill beside a house. Will my kids be able to get planning permission down the road on our land here? They can put windmills anywhere they like, but then they might stop my kids from putting a house near a windmill, you know?
If these wind turbines go up, it's very worrisome what will happen to the health of the people of O'Loughlin. My name is Mariana Alves Pereira. I hold a bachelor's in physics from the State University of New York. I hold a master's in biomedical engineering from Drexel University in Philadelphia, and I hold a PhD in environmental sciences. Within the Portuguese Air Force, I started working with the medical team in an Air Force base that was studying the health of workers exposed to noise. So my background in this subject comes from the occupational environment. Then in 2007 came the wind turbines. Wind turbines are just the last in a very long list of sources of infrasound and low frequency noise that can contaminate a residential area. So our team went to O'Loughlin to collect baseline data. So we want the baseline before the wind turbines come. And then if the wind turbines do in fact come, then we'd go back and measure the acoustic environment once they're there. The more prior exposure you have to noise before these wind turbines are erected, the quicker the onset of symptoms because of wind turbine noise exposure. It might be advantageous to acoustically insulate your home, but you realize that you will only be insulating against audible noise. So you won't hear the whoosh, you won't hear a lot of things associated with the operations of wind power plants. However, there is no protection against infrasound and low frequency noise. Scientists have not yet devised a way to protect against infrasound because there are enormous technical difficulties, and they pertain to the wavelength of the infrasound. The wavelength of sound that we hear is in the centimeter range. The wavelength of infrasound and low frequency noise is in kilometers. And infrasound can penetrate structures. It can penetrate the earth. It's very difficult to protect your home physically. And the nights is really the problem, right? Because during sleep time, the cells do things that they don't do during wake time. And if during this sleep time, the cells are being aggressively attacked, then physiologically everything gets affected, right? Besides the fact that you don't sleep, everything gets affected. It's very worrisome, given our past experience, what the residents of O'Loughlin might come to live in. If possible, I wouldn't live 50 kilometers away from them, particularly the big ones now. This is based on past experience, based on what other people who live today near wind turbines and who have not had the opportunity to flee, those people are not living healthy, happy lives at all.
It's been absolutely overwhelming. It's always on my mind. My name is Katrina. I'm living here since 2009. I built a house on family land. We have strong roots here in the community. We have 2 children. Our youngest son has special needs. My son is 22 and he has Down syndrome and autism. He spends an awful lot of time outside. He loves to play on his swing. He loves to be out with the dog. He can express himself freely. It's actually a beautiful place for him to live, lovely, quiet, peaceful area. I do have a huge fear because of the wind turbines that these will change everything for him. He'd be quite sensitive to sound, doesn't sleep great. I'm just afraid that he will be fearful of being outside. They're very close, they're 750 metres from my house. The nearest one, I think. So he might withdraw into the house. He mightn't sleep. His bedroom is literally looking at the wind turbine site. We've been told we will have shadow flicker. That could cause a lot of stress for him and sleep disturbances, which leads to behavioural difficulties, which then adds stress to the family. I worry about if these go up, will I have to relocate? Will I have to leave my house because of the impacts, especially on my son? Who would want to live here? Who's going to buy my home, you know? Where will I ever get a place that's going to be so spacious here? My son needs that and it's been taken from him.
Where is the strategic environmental assessment that's been done? Where is the economic reports that have been done to prove that Ireland is on the right track here? My name is Stephen Keogh. I live in the neighbouring community of Castlewarren, just next to O'Loughlin. I'm also a member of a national group called SEPA, the Community and Environmental Protection Alliance. That alliance has been set up by 60 plus communities around the country, similar to O'Loughlin, who are opposed to the siting of turbines in areas that are too close to people's homes. One of the serious concerns that SEPA has raised with government agencies is the lack of notifying the HSE for certain planning applications. The likes of Bord Pleanála, some of the councils have not been notifying the HSE of such developments which they are required under law. And for some they do, but for some they're not notifying the HSE. SEPA recently wrote the government requesting as to why are we waiting so long for the wind energy guidelines, and we managed to obtain records under the Freedom of Information, and Eamon Ryan, Minister for the Environment at the time, wrote to Minister Darragh O'Brien requesting that we roll back on following the WHO guidelines for noise standards when it comes to wind turbines. Essentially roll back to what we currently are working off, which is the 2006 guidelines. As a result, the government continued to kick the can down the road. We're still waiting for guidelines now, and I don't believe we'll see them between now and 2030. The modus operandi here seems to be from government, just keep kicking the can down the road, get as much of these wind turbines in as we can on top of communities, and ignore the health science that's there that shows and proves these are a problem when they're positioned too close to people's homes.
The biggest problem that we have in Ireland is that the 2006 guidelines are way outdated. The guidelines were brought in when turbines were 50 metres in height. And turbines now are almost 4 times that height. This is despite promises from successive governments. If we allow all of these wind farms to go ahead based on the 2006 guidelines, the government are leaving Ireland open to huge fines from Europe. Europe in 2004 brought in an SEA directive. For all EU member states, this means that they must evaluate the environmental impacts of their plans and programmes in relation to wind energy before they are approved. Ireland signed that into law in July of 2004. Our guidelines were produced in 2006 and no SEA was completed. If member states don't comply, they risk legal consequences including fines, infringement procedures and potential judicial action by the European Commission. There has already been precedence in relation to this. Belgium has already been brought before the European courts in the C2419 case. Our community believes that the guidelines will not be updated until the government are satisfied that they have enough wind farms in place. If they go ahead and complete an SEA, the government know that most of the wind farm developments in the pipeline will not get planning permission because the new updated guidelines will take into account the size of the turbines. It will change setback distances, it will change details in relation to shadow flicker. We believe that the government know that if they complete an SEA, it will halt a lot of the wind farms around Ireland. And that's the reason why the guidelines are not being updated. At the minute, there is a glimmer of hope for communities. Brian Stanley has a bill before the Dáil. In this bill, he looks for regulations. What he's looking for will give communities some sort of protection against wind farm proposals of this size. It shouldn't take that long to bring in a small bill. A bill was brought in less than 18 months, and part of the bill was to make it more difficult for communities to seek judicial reviews. The government sees that Bord Pleanála is clogged up with planning appeals. They see that the courts are clogged up with judicial reviews all in relation to wind farms. Instead of looking at the picture and saying, why is this happening? Why are communities fighting us to this extent? And looking at ways to remedy it, instead of that, they've brought in a bill that will actually make it more difficult for communities to bring forward a judicial review.
The pub has been here for 200 years. My grandfather bought it in 1930 and my father took over from him and I took over from him. My name is Rory Sheeran. I'm here all my life. I work here with my son Michael. He has worked in pubs from a young age too, so he knows the business and he's really eager to take it over. When my grandfather bought it, there was a big coal mining community here. This was the bar and shop, and he done drapery as well. He sold coal miners' clothes, tools, bikes. Nearly every night they'd be over here. If they were buying their clothes and bikes, they wouldn't have been able to pay everything there and then, so what they do is they'd pay so much every week. Most days we'll get, let's say, a few people that come in to look at the soaps. Fair City, EastEnders. Here now at the moment it's farmers. Most nights would have maybe 10, 15, and it's great to sit in there and they'll go back and talk about the past. And it's lovely just to listen to them. If the turbines do go ahead, it's going to be devastating for the pub because every business needs customers. What young couple in the right mind is going to move to an area which does, I suppose you could call them a concrete monster. There's going to be no new people coming to the area. For this pub alone, I think it's in trouble. All the old people that would have come at night to talk about things, they're going to be gone in years to come. It means a lot to the community. It's where everyone gathers at the end of the day. It just feels like the government is just letting it happen. There's a lot of loneliness out there, a lot of farmers living on their own. That means a lot to them to come over to the country pub at night, have the chat, meet some of the friends that they wouldn't see maybe 1 week to the next. You know, so this really is a good point of contact for them. These companies are so massive, they're not going to give up. It's just going to be one fight after another. It really feels like they're trying to shut down the countryside. In my time, it has been hard, and now with Michael, when he takes over, he takes pride in the family business. If these go ahead and the pub closes, it's going to be devastating for him. He has loads of experience, probably a better barman than I ever was.
We feel as a community that the community takes 100% of the risk. We take the risk to our health, to our financial standing. We risk the future of our children. All of the risks seem to be on the community. No risks are on the wind farm developer. The government guarantees them a market for their energy. The government guarantees them a price. So if it's a case the wholesale price drops below the agreed limit, then the Irish government pays them a subsidy to bring them back up to that, which in turn is paid by the Irish taxpayers. The grid in Ireland needs a major upgrade. At the minute, we're not able to accept all of the power that's being created by the wind farms on very windy days. If the grid were to allow all of the power to be sent to the grid, then we would have a blackout like what happened in Spain earlier this year. They contact the wind farm operators and ask them to switch off their power. The wind farm operators are compensated for this in what's called a constraint payment. The Irish government is spending Irish taxpayers' money paying for electricity that we don't get. Most of the judicial reviews in the High Court are taken by communities trying to appeal a decision made by An Bord Pleanála. Again, the developers have no financial risk here. The case is taken against An Bord Pleanála, not the developer. An Bord Pleanála is using taxpayers' money, our money, to fund their legal fees against the communities, and the communities need to raise their own funds to cover their own legal fees. The media covers wind energy in a very favourable light, and It makes the communities look like they're the bad guys that are stopping the rest of the country getting cleaner energy, cheaper energy, and that we'll own our own electricity. I believe, and we as a community believe, that yes, we should be energy independent. We should have complete control over our own power. But that's not the case in the developments that are in our area and in other communities. EDF is a name that comes up a lot. EDF are the French equivalent of the Irish ESB. Statkraft comes up, these are Norwegian. RWE comes up, that's German. Another risk that Ireland are bearing, and the developers are not, is that in the event of an environmental disaster, which has already happened in Derrybrine, in 2003 Ireland were taken to court. In total, the Irish government have paid 17 million to Europe in fines. For the 20 years that Ireland have been fighting the case in Europe, the developer has still been receiving the profits. The grid's not able to handle all of the power that the existing wind farms are producing on windy days. Every extra wind farm added to the grid without a significant upgrade will result in increased energy prices, as the constrained payments will increase. We're already seeing this with price increases from most of the electricity suppliers in the last few weeks. And as long as all of the new wind farms are proposed by foreign investors, we'll move further and further away from energy independence.
We sort of have been immersed in the area and immersed in the community. I'm Adrian O'Neill. I'm not originally from the area. My immediate family would have been originally from Loughlin Bridge. We've got 5 kids that grew up in the area. We moved back to the area purely to be closer to family. We came across a nice site of an old schoolhouse. We decided to buy it and develop it for a home. That's going back to the year 2000. When you're at home and you get a knock at the door at 11 o'clock at night, and it's a person from another community struggling to find a way forward with their appeal, and he's 72. He breaks down in your kitchen crying because he doesn't know what to do. When you have a person like that who's travelled 50 miles to come to see you, I can only imagine the same pressure is being applied on communities elsewhere. And as long as there's no regulations, I'm afraid I'll be getting knocks at the door from people travelling 50, 60, 100 miles from Galway to Donegal just to talk to you, just to find out how do we fight this thing. The politicians are going to leave it to the communities to fight it out themselves against the developers. And it's a gamble. You're gambling against the government. You're gambling against legal expertise that have been doing this for years and years. And you're gambling all that with your home because there's no regulations. And they go after the individuals to try separate them from the community. They try to put pressure on certain people that they'll go away. They will directly go to the wider community, such as the GEA clubs, offer them money to get greater community support. We'll give you some money towards your next development, but there's only one problem. The problem is living up there right beside the turbines. We give you the money only for him. And they play on that. They play on marginalising areas of communities. You can see now these communities that have cropped up all over Ireland trying to fight this in areas that probably don't have the help or the assistance of a bigger community. And that is generally what is happening for the past 10 years.
When we talk to people outside of the community, they say that if it's a case that wind farms are so detrimental to the health, why are we not hearing it every second day? Recently there was a case in Wexford. One of the homeowners was a retired barrister. The legal costs was 2.3 million. They won the case, which meant that they received damages. The court also ordered the wind farm developers to pay 950,000 of the legal fees for the homeowners. At the end of all of that, they got 3 turbines switched off. Those 3 turbines were creating profit for the wind farm company for those 12 years while the case was ongoing. It took 12 years of their lives with experience in the judicial system, and at the end of it, it still cost him €930,000. There is no ordinary person in any community around Ireland that's in a position, firstly, to give 12 years of their time, to know the judicial system to the same extent as that barrister. Nobody has the financial resources to be able to support an outlay of 2.3 million. And that's the reason why you're not seeing more of these cases. Ireland is at a crossroads. If we stay on this path, we face financial and environmental disaster. We need wind energy, but not if it sacrifices our communities, destroys our landscape and wastes taxpayers' money. Strong regulations backed by a full SEA must be introduced to protect our people and our environment. We are ordinary, reasonable people. All we want is a just transition. Communities need to be involved in the decision making. We can't be last to the table. Our judicial review is currently before the courts. As I mentioned earlier, it places a huge financial burden on the communities. We have a GoFundMe page, we have details of our bank account, both coming up at the end of the film. For anyone that's in a position to make a donation, we'd really appreciate it. We call on all of the other communities who are facing a similar struggle to ourselves to please consider donating. Every judicial review that's taken by a community and won makes the road a little bit easier for those communities coming behind.
I do intend farming on as long as I can. There's more and more every year in trouble with this, and I think that we're going to have to go together to try and fight it together.
People will ask the questions, how did we let these so close to people's homes? How did the planning and guidelines not be put in place to protect people's health?
Every country pub will be affected. It's up to our government, because they are our government. They should be fighting for us, but they're not.
I just feel that this could change everything for my son. He has a right to live in an environment that's not affected by wind turbines.
And if there was regulations in, that would protect us. We shouldn't have to go to the courts every time there's a planning application. Without regulations, it's not sustainable.